And why? Why does every single one of them? Why did you die before me and leave me all alone here?
Promise me you won't forget me.
And then you tell me that we're the ones who have to fight to the end. That's what makes us who we are.
The combat commander of Spearhead Squadron. Call sign, Undertaker. War name, The Reaper. His real name, Shinei Nouzen. To the handlers of the San Magnolia Republic, he's an urban legend. To the other members of the 86, he's their salvation. To himself, he's a scarred young man who's outlived every single unit he served with. He spends his days fighting a war that never seems to end, while also fighting on the front lines against the Legion. He's an exile who's cursed with the ability to hear the voices of the dead. He's a living library where the names of the fallen are stored. He's a damaged soul of a soldier who seeks permission to live. He, and he alone, chooses to be the one who secures the deaths of his comrades so that their souls aren't stolen by the Legion. He roams the battlefield, piloting a juggernaut with an insignia of a headless skeleton knight, a ghost of a soldier who doesn't know where his mind is at. On the outside, it's loyalty, but on the inside, it's penance. Shinei Nouzen is the most emotionally grounded portrayal of survivor's guilt in modern anime. He perfectly embodies the burden of living, the weight of memory, and the quiet desperation to make sense of it all. He's a cautionary tale that shows us that survivor's guilt can turn even the most formidable soldier into a symbol of death and a slave to grief.
And on you go, a headless reaper, searching for what you've lost.
Hey guys, Cjayy here, and sometimes I wonder, why am I here? Surviving is often meant to mark the end of a battle, but for some, that's when the real fight begins. They're not haunted by the idea that they could have died, they're haunted by the memories of those who could have lived. Why them and not me? That is survivor's guilt. It's when you feel guilt, shame, or even responsibility for surviving a traumatic event when others did not. It's the subconscious belief that survival is a sin. It feels like you've been given a second chance that you never even asked for at the cost of someone else's only chance. If not addressed, your brain will analyze, create, and dream of these scenarios where you did something differently and they would still be here. All up to the point of severe depression and shame that causes your life to go on pause, as if you died along with them. Survivor's guilt is the unwanted child of PTSD and grief, a poisoned journey of grief where you're denying it should have happened, bargaining that you could have done things differently, angry at yourself for not doing things differently, depressed that you failed them and don't deserve to move on, and accepting the lie that it was your fault. But, like all hurt and neglected children, we need to take the steps to show them that we acknowledge them and that they're wanted. Let them know that we validate their struggle and that together we can shine light onto your darkest shame. Survivor's guilt isn't just guilt, it's grief that you plagiarized. This is not a fictional concept from some anime. This is an invisible weight carried by so many survivors of trauma. Not just soldiers, but anyone who's ever lost someone and thought, what could I have done differently so that they could still be here? Why do I get to live and they don't? Shinei Nouzen just happens to be a painful manifestation of this concept. War, natural disaster, accidents, suicide. In the heat of the moment, it'll take you seconds to process what happened and keep the mission going, but it could take the rest of your life to forgive yourself for it. Even if you did nothing wrong and had absolutely no control over the outcome, you still can't help but feel that you could have done more, or worse, that it should have been you instead. Since you lived and they didn't, you move on by killing parts of yourself little by little every day, just trying to justify your own survival. You start to think, the more I suffer, the more they meant, and if I move on and be happy with my life, it means forgetting them and everything they stood for. All this self-talk, regardless if it's coming from intentions of loyalty and honor, causes survivals to push themselves beyond their limits. They're driven by the belief that they have to live up to the fallen's unfulfilled potential. The dreams they had, the family they had, the family they wanted to have. What was once a list of hopes and dreams is now nothing but an engraving on a tombstone. The worst part about acknowledging someone being gone is fighting the idea that everything they once stood for is gone too. Survivor's guilt causes people to believe it's now their responsibility to carry that forward. This relentless pursuit overshadows their own aspirations. Why should they think about what to do with their own lives when they're too busy trying to avenge someone else's? The unachieved dreams of their fallen friends becomes a mission of their own, a last-ditch effort to keep their memory alive, to give their lost meaning, or to even earn their own right to live. This is who Shin is, a soldier who fights not to protect his country or to defeat the enemy, but in a desperate effort to preserve meaning in those who have gone before him, so much so that he fails to give himself meaning.
Is there something you want to do when you leave the army and become a Republic citizen again? Somewhere you want to go or want to see?
I've never thought about it.
Survivor's guilt is not a byproduct of sound logic. I mean, try to name a psychological condition that is. At its core, survivor's guilt is a psychological defense mechanism, a way for the mind to regain a sense of control after experiencing loss. When you survive something that others didn't, your brain doesn't feel relief, it feels disbelief. And that disbelief causes you to starve for an explanation. Let's talk about the psychological process for a sec. The part of your brain that processes emotions like fear starts to overclock during these high-stress situations. Then all the contextual-based memories, sounds, sights, smells, final words, now they're being processed at a higher quality than usual. This is the part of your brain that consolidates short-term memories and turns them into long-term ones. The part of your brain that rationalizes things, makes decisions, plans, and regulates emotions. All that gets suppressed during these situations. You act faster than you can analyze deliberately, because in the heat of the moment, in the midst of combat, is not the time to be asking why. Once everything's calmed down, those vivid fragments start to play at such a high intensity without a coherent narrative, without a why. This is the part where you start to fill in those gaps on your own. Now, what does this mean? So much happened during the traumatic event, so many things to process, so many causes and so many effects. You know who, what, when, where, but never why. Why did they die? Even one of these questions being left unanswered is enough to generate that feeling of helplessness. Let's put ourselves in Shin's point of view. Is it the Legion's fault for developing effective weapons? Do I blame the handler for telling them to position here? Was it the mechanic's fault that their juggernaut malfunctioned? Do I blame Sad Magnolia for conscripting us to fight in the first place? Or was it my fault? It's easier to continue on telling ourselves it was our fault, because sitting with that truth is easier than trying to factor in everything else. Blaming yourself generates that sense of agency and accountability that you're never going to get anywhere else. It creates the illusion of control. You gave yourself the answer you were desperately looking for. You've reduced that feeling of helplessness. When an 86 is wounded in battle, Shin makes sure that he finds them and puts them out of their misery. The Legion is a fully autonomous drone army designed to wage unmanned war. No country to control them, no country to stop them. Their self-replicating war ecology allows them to repair and improve themselves without any human oversight. Their advanced central processing units consist of harvested human neural tissue. They're not conquering, they're hunting. Hunting for human brains to refuel their biological processors. Shin, securing their deaths and ensuring the swift destruction of their brain, makes sure that the Legion can't use them to fuel their war machine. But if we look at this from the perspective of survivor's guilt, Shin dealing the final blow, Shin literally being the one who kills them, he's taking credit for their deaths instead of blaming everything that led up to it. It would be more beneficial for him to secure their deaths and live with that blame than to allow the Legion to take them and corrupt his memory of them. The Legion, being an unstoppable and formidable war machine, can be seen as a metaphor for the forces of entropy, the impermanence of life, the unforgiving march of time, and the inevitability of death. Shin would rather take credit for the kill than give in to the chaos. They were critically wounded from things he couldn't control during battle, but yet he still comes in to finish the job. In most cases, they were already dead or dying by the time he got there. In fact, the battle's probably over since it was safe enough to recover them. The human brain, as complex as it is, can be very stubborn. It refuses to believe it is what it is, or it was bad luck, or bad timing. We don't like accepting that sometimes the true reasoning is randomness, or anything beyond our comprehension. Instead, it believes, if I had done this differently, if it was me driving that day, if only I had prepared a plan for this, if only I had pulled that trigger faster, if I had taken their shift, or called them sooner, or noticed the signs, maybe, just maybe they'd still be here. 'Cause if it was my fault, then I can fix it or prevent it from happening again. You can't help but start to think, I didn't just lose them, I failed them. Part of us still thinks we can rewrite what went wrong. Let's talk about Shin's different names. There's his call sign and there's his war name. There's an important difference between these two. A call sign is how you identify over the radio, or an overall unit identification, mostly from a higher ranking position for commanders to organize their units. Shin's call sign, the Undertaker. This is the name given to him by the San Magnolia military. It's what they, the handlers, identify him as, a name chosen by his oppressors. He's nothing more to them than a juggernaut processor with a model number and serial tag. An Undertaker, someone who takes people under, the driver of a hearse, a funeral director, or the burial coordinator. Someone who prepares, carries, and buries the dead to be laid to rest. That's all Shin was to the Alba, a subhuman slave cursed with the responsibility and inevitability of burying everyone around him. A username that stayed on their screen while other users got disconnected. Compare that to his war name, the Reaper. A call sign is how you're designated by your leaders. A war name is how you're remembered by your comrades. Call signs are assigned, war names are earned. Here's the beautiful difference between the Undertaker and the Reaper. The Undertaker receives your body and prepares you for burial as you return to the earth that you came from. But the Reaper is an obvious reference to the Grim Reaper, a hooded skeleton walking around with their scythe, an urban legend described as the harvester of souls, one who reaps their subjects like grain in a field. They're also known as the Angel of Death. Legend says that the moment you even see the Reaper, the moment they reveal themselves to you, it's already too late. Your time has come and there's no escaping it. But the Angel of Death is still an angel. They're not meant to be a feared monster or a final boss. The Grim Reaper is not responsible for deciding how and when you die, but it's their task and purpose to hold your hand amidst all the despair and walk with you as you move on from this life to the next. Shin bears this name to heart. He sees himself as the only one who can and should take their lives and names forward, the collector of souls. He bears the responsibility of pulling the trigger, ensuring a peaceful afterlife, as opposed to the hell they'd be subject to if they were taken by the Legion. The Grim Reaper, the Angel of Death are mostly the Western translations, but the Japanese actually have their own word for it as well, the Shinigami. Shin, short for Shinei, very similar to the Japanese word Shinei. It's a conjugation of the Japanese word shi, meaning death, gami, meaning god or spirit, the Shinigami, the god of death. Shinei, specifically as a conjugation, translates to asking or commanding someone to go die. When others call him Shin, it might sound like shi, as if every time they call out to him, they're calling out to death. Take out the N in Shin, and you have shi. Take out the H, and you have sin. Shin rewrites every loss as his failure, as if he committed the sinful act of surviving when they didn't. He's someone who's already died emotionally in every way, yet is being denied entrance into the afterlife like it's some kind of divine punishment. He atones for this sin by fighting and fighting and fighting again, carrying their names like it's his cross to bear. He's seeking penance for his self-fabricated wrongdoings without anyone to absolve him from them. He's sentencing himself to a life where the debt owed to the dead never clears. The Undertaker and the Reaper transcend past the idea of being nicknames. They've become who he is, and not just what he does.
It's the pistol he used to end everyone's lives. And Shin never let anyone else do that. Never even came close.
Well, I'm sure he had to because of the voices he heard. But I don't think it would kill him to take it a bit easier.
there were probably times when being trapped by it actually helped him get through.
As we discussed, people who struggle with survivor's guilt, just like any depressive psychological condition, are alone in their thoughts. The story that came out of that traumatic event is written in first person, so of course it's biased and lacking the big picture or any other perspectives. Survivor's guilt can feel like a court trial in your head, where you volunteered as the culprit and your intrusive memories acting as witnesses or the evidence. Your shame and your anxiety is your prosecutor, but you, and you alone, are both the defendant and judge. The verdict: guilty. Here's where it's more difficult for Shin. He literally has the ability to hear the voices of the dead. When the Legion successfully harvests the brain of a fallen 86, Shin is able to hear those stolen brain signals surviving inside the mechanisms of their drones. The remaining synapses that were firing during their final moments get written into a spinning disc for the Black Sheep Legion, but a broken record on repeat for Shin to listen to every second that he's alive. A processor with the ability to continue those programs in the background when they didn't end correctly. In other words, Shin is able to hear the last words, the last thoughts of every 86 that is killed by the Legion, a morbid metaphor of being haunted by the ones he failed to save. While this is a science fiction superpower to Shin, this is one of the most difficult symptoms of survivor's guilt that survivors deal with. Let's go back to what the brain does during these traumatic events. In this moment of high stress, the accident, the crash, the attack, or where you were when you found out about the news, your brain is desperately trying to process everything going on, regardless of the level of detail. The screams, the faces, the smells, the last thing that person said to you. The story is written in your memories with darker ink than usual. The way your body fell forward when the brakes were slammed, the exact sound and frequency of the gunshots, the last time they said I love you, the smell of the coffee they made every day. This isn't a weakness, it's triage. It's your brain saving what felt most vital at the time, leaving you to fill in the blanks. And that's where things can go wrong. When you choose to carry this weight by yourself, continuing to write the story without anyone else to confirm the historical accuracy, you allow those voices to take over and change how you feel every time you look back at it. This is why Shin continues to wander the battlefield. He's perpetually plagued by the voices of those who died, those he failed to save from the Legion. By constantly hearing the final screams, the final wishes, and final calls for help from the fallen, he's restlessly reminded that he needs to save them.
Our dearly beloved Reaper.
If it weren't for you, if it weren't for you.
Please, I beg of you. You have to save us now.
This is all
Just
your
be
fault.
free. Try to be happy. No! Not when you left me behind!
I don't want to die!
Shin.
Another brutally poetic way that the story encapsulates his power is how Shin actually uses his power to their advantage in battle. Shin is able to warn his team to get ready for the incoming Legion because he hears them. By the time the handlers respond, the squadron's already mobilized. I can't help but feel that this is symbolic of Shin, letting the voices tell him that he needs to fight. A survivor of trauma who can assume danger from miles away. They turned hypervigilance into an anime superpower, always ready for the next fight and the next opportunity to try and make up for your failures. So, Shin just has to kill all his wounded and captured teammates so he's no longer haunted by the voices, right? Wrong. This is where Shin's suffering from his literal ability to hear the dead bleeds into the burden that is brought to survivor's guilt. As the story goes on, we see that Shin has these flashbacks of every soldier he's lost under his command. We even see the soldiers that we literally witnessed get laid to rest properly earlier in the season. Their memories haunt Shin, regardless if the Legion took them or not. Even if Shin didn't have this ability, he would still be suffering from these thoughts. This should be proof that this goes beyond science fiction. This is a very real and unforgiving phenomenon that survivors have to deal with alone. Or, at least someone like us can prove to them they're not alone, and help them rewrite that previous chapter. Help them make peace with the names that won't make it to the end of the story. Securing their deaths and ensuring the destruction of their brain isn't the only thing Shin does to his fallen comrades. The next step in his undertaking ritual is to carve out a piece of their Juggernaut insignia. That's when he inscribes their names on it and keeps it in a container that he keeps in his Juggernaut. 576 fragments are in that box. 576 names that Shin had to carve. 576 soldiers that Shin had to kill or watch die. Sometimes, straightforward storytelling is the best way to get the message across. Shin carries their names, carries a piece of them everywhere he goes. As more soldiers die, the heavier the box gets. He's carrying the weight of their deaths. As a reminder, the Alba doesn't allow the 86 to have graves, because that would imply that they were once a human that was worth remembering. The fact that the Juggernaut's armor is so weak that Shin can carve it out with a knife shows how little they cared about their safety. In a world where these soldiers have already been designated as worthless by the government that sent them out to die, Shin chooses to be the first person to ever give them meaning. Real soldiers do this too. Sometimes they keep a copy of their dog tags, or wear Till Valhalla bracelets, or keep one of their name tapes. This box is a portable cemetery that's kept underneath his seat, a reminder to him and the surviving 86 that no one is forgotten. The other 86 that fight alongside him can be at ease, knowing that if something were to happen to them, Shin will be there to take them with him. The problem is that the concept of this box can be a double-edged sword. On one side, it's a way for him to honor their memories and carry them wherever he goes, but on the other, it's a constant reminder of his guilt, his grievances, his sins, constantly reminding himself that everyone else seems to die but him. The problem is, if Shin dies, who will save him? Who will remember him and take his memory forward into the next fight?
I remember everyone, because I have to take them all with me. Every last ally who died fighting by my side, until I reach my final destination.
This is all your fault!
One thing that I've come to understand that really led the charge at how I understand how trauma works is that trauma begins before the trauma. The way that we experience, analyze, and carry trauma can be entirely dependent on your current environment. Things like your moral beliefs, your active support systems, or even your position. That's why you can have people who can all experience the same traumatic event from the same distance, yet all handle it differently. Survivor's guilt is more common in people with extreme empathy. When you're the kind of person who values others more than you value yourself, you're guaranteed to want to give the ones who have died a little bit more time to shine, even if it costs you your own light. In Shin's case, he's a wartime commander with a traumatic childhood. His parents and his brother were already sentenced to fight and die in this war before he was. His brother Ray wrongfully took out his anger on Shin and nearly strangled him to death. According to the Republic of San Magnolia, 86 that served would have citizenship granted to them and one other family member. Shin and Ray's father joined to give it to Ray, and their mother joined to give it to Shin. In Ray's outrage, he began to believe that if Shin wasn't born, their mother would have never had to join and get killed. There Shin was, getting strangled by his own brother and being told that him being alive is why their mother died. Words that have echoed in his mind every day since. Shin was already plagued with survivor's guilt ever since he was a child, before he even joined the military. Canonically, it's said that Shin's ability to hear the dead came from the fact that he actually almost died that night. His brief back and forth to the afterlife granted him the ability to hear the voices of those who have died, but with souls that remain on Earth. The difference is that their ghosts are trapped in the Legion, but Shin's ghost is trapped in his own body. A traumatic event from his childhood became the reason why he's hurting so much now. The event that gave him the ability to hear the voices of the dead. There was already an instance in his life where he was supposed to die, but didn't, and instead he has to live with the final words that his brother said to him before he was conscripted. It's all your fault. Ray eventually became a Legion Shepherd, an elite Legion drone that harvested a perfectly healthy and functional human brain, a sentient drone capable of leading advanced autonomous operations. Out of all the voices that Shin hears, it's the voice of his brother that haunts him the most. The irony is that his last words have been hurting Shin long before he even became a part of the Legion. Shin, already having this mindset prior to joining the war, naturally made it his default reaction to everything he had to witness. That's why he's so hell-bent at trying to right his wrongs, the things he believes are his wrongs.
I know a little something about how a child feels when their family tells them they're not needed. They start to believe that being rejected is actually their fault. They might know intellectually that it isn't, but they still find a way to blame themselves. Especially since Shin wasn't told that just by his brother, but by other people too. You can't really get past things like that alone. You need help.
Those in the military or any type of leadership position where you have someone looking up to you can relate to this next part. Your two basic responsibilities were always uppermost in your mind. the accomplishment of your mission, and the welfare of your soldiers. So every time a soldier falls, you feel responsible and that you failed your mission. Now, he's the combat commander for the most experienced soldiers of the 86th, soldiers who all look up to him as their savior. We've already covered how Shin is the first one to take the blame. Let's go back to the reason why. Survivor's guilt festers when there is no one to correct the narrative, no one to step in to tell you that it wasn't your fault. No one knows that Shin thinks all of these deaths are his fault because he's never told anyone that he thinks it's his fault. As a leader or a protector with people looking up to you in these dire situations, it's difficult to be vulnerable. It's difficult to show even the slightest bit of weakness. You need your subordinates to know that you won't falter under the worst conditions the mission has to offer. You can see how he carries himself throughout the entire series so far. He communicates in the heat of battle with a steady voice with no startle or panic. It feels like nonchalance, but really it's deliberate compartmentalization. Under him are his soldiers that look up to him to keep them alive, but above him is a handler and a government trying to expedite their deaths. He doesn't vent, he doesn't panic, he doesn't show confusion. The problem with his calculated command presence is that it creates distance, where he's both an anchor and an island, holding down the fort while building his own walls. The guilt that he's been hiding this entire time has gone uncorrected. He takes his position as a leader so seriously that he doesn't let anyone in. It's a warning to leaders out there who could be making the same mistake. He lived when his parents died. He lived when his brother died. He lived when every soldier under his command died. He lived even when he wasn't expecting to, when he didn't want to. He lived, and he doesn't know what to do now.
All you were doing was looking for a place to die, that's all. And on your meaningless journey, you took everyone else with you.
Survivor's guilt isn't just a sad feeling, it's a genuine cognitive state that can affect your life negatively. It's linked to higher PTSD severity, depression, and even suicidal thoughts and behaviors. This feeling of guilt makes you over-identify with the fallen, you memorialize them frequently, and of course it helps you relive the traumatic event. You either feel like you don't deserve peace in your new life, or you feel the perpetual need to push yourself to limits that you can't reach or even need to reach. Shin's entire identity, his justification towards being alive when he shouldn't be, is to be the Undertaker, to be the Reaper. But we see these damaging effects linger past the battlefield. Shin finally laid his brother to rest, finally escaped the chains of the San Magnolia Republic, and now he's been rescued by the Federacy of Gyad, and he decides to get back into the military. This is proof that Shin convinced himself that there's no space for anything in his life outside of this war. He's in an environment where he no longer needs to fight. The few friends he has left are safe. He's deep enough in the city that he doesn't hear the voices of the Legion anymore. He spent so long being the Undertaker and being the Reaper that he's unable to understand what being Shinei Nouzen is. He's allowed his survivor's guilt to create this current struggle of a post-war identity crisis. He was a soldier, a leader, and a mourner. Those roles disappeared overnight as he woke up in a hospital bed. Years of combat experience lie dormant as he spends his days at the library. This is stacked on top of the fact that even before the war, he was dehumanized by his own government and family. How can he return to society when he was never a part of it to begin with? Shin is unable to live his new life because he feels as if he died alongside his true purpose. The person he always thought of himself as is still out there in that battlefield. When your entire identity is based off fighting to avenge and to bring meaning to those who died in war, what do you do when you're no longer a part of that war? He wants to bring the names of those he's lost to his final destination, but he doesn't want to admit where he thinks that final destination is.
On that night, I failed to die. Except, I know I'm still dead inside. Ever since then, I'm incapable of want. I don't want to see the ocean like you guys. There's nothing I want to do, or any place where I want to go. It hasn't really been a problem for me. But I kind of understand now, that not even having one tiny little thing you want to do. Yes, it was fun, because I thought it would be over soon. I thought we'd be dead, and they'd never know why. But then, sadly, we survived. I was supposed to die. The future is too long for someone like me. Not having any wishes is the same as not wanting to be alive. And I'm the only one who's not truly alive. I'm just the Reaper, that's all. I'm not planning to die.
Oh, how convenient. But let's be honest. You had no intentions of coming back alive either!
When I first saw this anime, I saw myself in Shin in more ways than I wanted to admit. I was in the army for 6 years, which is funny enough the amount of time the 86 have to serve. Instead of a juggernaut, I had a Humvee. Instead of the Legion, I had the COVID pandemic. Instead of Eugene, I had Ramos. And instead of Survivor's Guild, well, I had Survivor's Guild. Ramos was my roommate during the pandemic. We were both at the rank of specialists, and we both wanted to become team leaders as soon as we could. The two of us, stuck in our rooms, watching as the rest of the world fell apart, not being able to go home, let alone go off base. We passed the time by queuing songs on our Bluetooth speaker, watching each other play video games, and of course drinking and talking about how one day we're going to be great leaders and that everything's going to be okay. But as the world became more and more sick and the virus continued to run rampant, we found ourselves growing apart. Being his roommate ended up becoming a battle within itself. His messy room always got us yelled at during room inspections. I was the only one restocking the fridge with ice and groceries. Ice that he'd pour into his coffee that he'd make and drink 4 times a day. 24/7 our room smelled like coffee. And of course, he gets quarantined for 2 weeks, just in time for a big barracks inspection from higher leadership. There I was, stressing and cleaning the barracks all by myself, all while picking up his duties at work, all while just trying to call home and make sure my family's okay. My hours of sleep decreased as the amount of alcohol in the fridge increased. One day, he came home from quarantine, but my door was closed. I knew who it was, but I didn't feel like pausing my game or letting my beer get warm. I have a 24-hour shift tomorrow, and I'm trying to enjoy my only free night this week. The main hallway door gets blasted open. He calls me a bitch. I call him a dumbass. He laughs hard. I laugh hard. I woke up the next day to do my 24-hour shift. Came back, took a nap, woke up to make some food, and got back to cleaning. Without him. Then, when my captain and first sergeant came to my room for the inspection, they closed the door behind them, and they told me that Ramos went AWOL and shot himself. I used to think that the only reason I never killed myself was because he beat me to it. He showed me what it does to people. Not only did I lose him, I failed him. And now, I get a bit sad every time someone makes coffee around me. 6 years as a soldier and never got sent to war. But ever since that day, I still feel like I killed someone. The hardest part about burying Ramos was seeing his family, the family that I never even knew about. His aunt crying, his mother passed out from grief, his 2 siblings coming up to me asking me what he was like, and his father coming up to me and thanking me for taking care of his son. I couldn't help but imagine, what if that was my aunt, my mom, my 2 siblings, my dad? If things have ended up differently, what if it was Ramos and my friends traveling across the country to comfort them? What if it was me instead? Or, what if I got my shit together and neither of us had to die? What if I had just opened the door to talk to him? What if I wasn't drinking? What if I had seen the signs? What if I pulled the trigger before he did? And what if I wasn't the reason that he died? That was my guilt, my shame, my failure. Amidst all the chaos and pain and depression we both went through, I lived with this sin for so long because I was so convinced that I don't deserve to be forgiven for what I had done and what I had failed to do. Not by myself or any of my friends or leaders who also lost Ramos. I spent the remainder of my military career desperately trying to be a leader we both should have been. Every delay I faced, every mistake I made was taken to heart. I let go of who I originally was and cut off anyone else who got in my way. And then I left the military, after all those years trying to be perfect at being the person he didn't even ask me to be. I came home and I had no idea what to do now. Why am I still here if I'm no longer trying to justify why he's no longer here? 86 to me was a cautionary tale that helped me realize that I needed help. Not only did it give me a name towards what I was feeling, it gave me a sign that it can be worked on. Because if there's hope for these fictional characters, then there might be some hope for me. Some hope in addressing the torment that I created in my own head. It pushed me to research and verbalize the things I was struggling with. And I'm here today, extending that message forward to others who might need to hear it as well. So, how does one get rid of survivor's guilt? How does one make all that grief go away? Well, you can't. Grief is not something that goes away. It's something that you get better at living with. Isolation is the fuel that keeps survivor's guilt burning. Your story goes untold and uncorrected. You will crumble trying to carry the weight of your pain on your own. So let someone help you carry it.
I'm sure it isn't bothering you, but I'm gonna say it anyway. None of this was your doing.
Raiden Shuga, werewolf, Shin's closest comrade, one of the few soldiers from his previous units that survived with him. He's technically the second in command, and the entire squadron sees him as their big brother. As the two of them share these similar positions and similar experiences, Raiden is a great example of someone you'd want by your side when dealing with this kind of grief. Another person in a leadership position who Shin can safely open up to, but doesn't. Several times throughout the series, Raiden is always the one that keeps Shin in check, reminding him not to fight alone, reminding them to move together, reminding them when it's time to fall back. I think of my best friend from the army, Ben. I was technically senior to him, but I looked up to him like he was my older brother anyway. He was my Humvee driver while I was the gunner, and he was one of the friends that came with me to Ramos' funeral. Someone who felt his loss just as much as I did. Someone who was by my side during and after that traumatic event. Yet, I kept my shame to myself for the longest time. The person who told me that we're gonna get through this together happened to be my driver. The person I could always depend on to get me where I needed to be. Raiden doesn't deny Shin his grief. He doesn't tell him to get over it. He tells him that I understand what you're going through, and I know it hurts a lot. You don't need to carry it by yourself.
You were never gonna get left behind.
That is the power of presence. Company, credibility, connection. That is what breaks the curse that is survivor's guilt. You don't always need someone who can relate to what you're going through. Sometimes, all you need is someone to tell you, we need you back in the fight, and I'm coming with you.
We're all traveling the same road together. You know that no matter what, we've got your back. If you're tired, take a rest. So, don't try to win this war by yourself.
Look at Kyri and Frederica as another cautionary tale. Kyri let the battlefield consume him, leaving his little sister alone to live with his loss. Someone so young and innocent has to live with that. Think of your younger siblings, your children, your friends, your significant other. They don't need a war hero. They need you. They need their older sibling back. They need their parent back. They're not going to remember the fallen the same way you do. They're going to remember how much you showed up for them and the life you chose to live moving forward. In the final fight against Kyri, when Shin is damaged in battle and lost in his thoughts, he gets to a point where he no longer even tries to save himself. Almost as if that after another battle, another victory, he's disappointed that he's still alive. As he sits there, one last legion comes for him, and he has no ability or intention to save himself. Cyclops is the one who defends him, but Lena is the one who saves him. Vladilena Milize, call sign, Handler 1. 1 as in the one handler to ever treat the 86 as human. The first handler to ever cry at their deaths and memorialize them. For the first time, Shin met someone other than him who also chooses to carry the memory of their fallen friends so close to their heart. Lena is visibly more emotional whenever a soldier dies under her command, but then we see her back on the para-raid and back in her chair the next day, as opposed to Shin, who remains cold and compartmentalized but secretly battles the voices in his head every day. Despite Shin being rejected by his society, damaged by his family, and haunted by his grief, Lena showed him that unconditional support and said, I can fix him. Lena and Shin are both military leaders who have to live with the memories of the soldiers lost under their command. But while Shin puts all the blame on himself and resents his own survival, Lena lives the rest of her life living in a way that would honor them. In fact, Lena has her own box where she keeps track of the dead. But instead of Shin carrying literal pieces of them, we have Lena and her cute little drawings of what she thinks they look like. That's such an adorable parallel in the sense that Shin has a physical piece of the damage done to the dead, but Lena has her hand-drawn faces that were based on memory, symbolic of how she personally chooses how to remember them after they're gone. She was someone who reached past the distance he created, someone who called every night making an effort to understand his pain, even when he never wanted to do so himself. She gave him the words that he needed to hear his entire life.
As for you, you're the same as I am. You fought to the end, and you survived. That's why you're here now. And if you ask me, that's something you should be more proud of.
This is the moment that I knew I was meant to discover this anime. This is the moment where I stopped trying to take the memories of the fallen to my final destination, and instead take them past this battlefield. I know that one day, long after my time in the military, I'll reunite with them again, and that when we meet again, they shouldn't have to see me waging a war against myself. It was Lena that showed Shin that it's possible to live a life that exists past this war. Those with survivor's guilt need someone like Lena, someone who understands the dark road they've led themselves down, but can reach out and get them back on the right path. That's why I've made this video.
It's been a long time, Eugene. A long time ago you asked why I was fighting. To be perfectly honest, I still don't know. I mean, I don't have any real reason to fight, not the way you did. But I do know this. I made a promise I would take them all the way to the end, and when they finally get there, they shouldn't have to see another battlefield. I believe if I can show them something wonderful they've never seen before, at least for now, that will be enough of a reason to keep fighting. I'll come back, and next time, I'll tell you about something you've never seen before.
By asking to get rid of your guilt, by asking your grief to go away, you are looking at the ones you've lost in the eyes and telling them to go away. You're asking that younger version of yourself that was so lost, so traumatized, so helpless to go away. You are grieving because you love that person enough to feel the emptiness in their absence. You experience guilt because you have a good enough heart to feel regret. What a privilege it is to have had someone worth losing, and what an honor it is to have been so loyal to them that you wish you did better by them. This world can take away the people you love, but they can never, ever take away the meaning they gave you. Shin's brother died a long time ago, yet killing his Legion host has been his motivation for fighting for the longest time. He even says it's the one thing that he has to do before he dies. Shin believes that killing his brother would finally free him of this pain. This is the mistake of trying to get rid of your grief rather than trying to live with it. And we know this fails by the way that he still carries around his name, even after he destroyed him. If his goal was to make sure he kills his brother before he dies, what's supposed to happen between reaching that goal and him dying? What are his goals now? It wasn't until the end of the series where he finally put his shard away and made peace with his loss.
It's hard to envision a future without him. There's nothing left I wish for, nor anything I'm seeking. I still don't have any idea what I'm even living for. But I have people who would never once dream of leaving me behind, who swore that I'm who they want by their side. So, I think I'm gonna be okay. I'll get there alone.
Shin finally leaves his box of names at a proper final destination, a preserved memorial at the location where they nearly died and began their new lives. This is the perfect place to say his farewell, since it's symbolic of being the location where his titles of the Undertaker and the Reaper can be laid to rest. By leaving all 556 shards here, he's officially letting go of the weight he's been carrying all this time and is able to move forward with his new life.
You didn't create the situation we're in. There's no way any one person could fix it on their own. Blaming yourself for not doing the impossible will only result in more pain.
And I've done the same with the names that I've carried. Up there on my patch wall next to all my other unit patches, I put my name up there too. I've chosen to follow that same sense of symbolism, the sense that I died alongside with them, to remind myself that that version of me can be laid to rest, to remind myself that I don't need to fight anymore, that it's time to create a new name for myself. Shinei Nouzen, most likely referring to the Nouzen Kazura, the Chinese trumpet vine. This enthusiastic little plant has a vigorous tendency to climb towards sunlight, regardless of the soil it's given. It's a perfect symbol of Shin's resilience and his determination to reach towards the light, despite his dark origins and any obstacles that might come to slow him down. It's not easy. Trust me, I know. Moving on feels like letting go of the only thing that's ever felt real. If I gave up on their dream, I let go of the only thing I have left to remember them and who they were.
Not true. You are mistaken. Don't you see you all made it here because you fought to the end already? You have the right to enjoy the spoils and rewards. You've earned them fair and square. That's what your fallen comrades would want. You must know that.
I get it. There's this perpetual fear that you're being watched by them, haunted by their voices as if they're waiting for you to do something with yourself. But of course it hurts. You're mourning the death of the person you no longer need to be. But I want you to try something right now. Listen to those voices. Remember what they look like. Imagine if they were standing here right now in front of you. What would they think of you if they saw you like this? They didn't die so they could hear that you wish you could join them. They didn't go down in the middle of a fight just to see that you never left the battlefield. They didn't kill themselves just to see you be just as depressed as they were. We need to allow the ones we've lost to live through us, not by living a life dedicated to them, but by letting them live a life through our eyes. Let the things that they stood for shine again through your actions. For the longest time, I couldn't help but think, why me? But now that it is me, I think of how many people I can save, how many people I can warn, all the people I can look in the eyes and say, if I can make it, you can too. It's not your fault. The cure to survivor's guilt is to stop trying to change the painful past that you're holding on to. Instead of carrying their names with you and letting those voices control you, you need to show them a future so bright that it outshines the darkness that their memories created. To live life to the fullest.